as of right now, James Gunn and Peter Safran are named the new heads of DC Studios. And that leaves DC fans waiting for James Gunn's list of movies for the new Phase 1 of DC, or what he calls Chapter 1 of DC, which I actually really like. So me being me, and I've seen other people doing videos kind of similar to this. I've seen videos like making the DCU a cinematic universe with the structure of the MCU. And I want to do a video kind of like that, but how I would make the DCU if I was in charge of it. And since, like I mentioned earlier, they were calling it chapters, I think it's only right that I do the same thing for this universe, because I really like how that sounds. Opposed to them just doing how Marvel does it with the different phases. I feel like chapter would really set the tone for this new DCU universe and separate it from Marvel. So the first movie I would start off with is a Batman movie, and instead of calling it Batman, I would call it The Caped Crusader. And yes, this is going to be an origin story, and I know we've had a lot of origin stories, but I want this universe to go on for like 10 years. So I feel like it's only right we started off with an origin story. And because it's an origin story, I want a small part of this film to take place when Bruce is still a child. That way we get to explore the way he's feeling after losing his family. We also get to see how Gotham reacts to the loss of the Waynes. We get to see how Alfred reacts and how Bruce deals with being an orphan now. I would just want to show in great depth how everything unraveled into Bruce Wayne turning into what he is today. And as usual, Bruce Wayne is seen as this charming, mysterious billionaire. And then at night when he's Batman, he's all dark and brooding. In this movie, I want to do something different with the character though. I want him to have carried PTSD from his childhood. And to be more specific, it's triggered whenever Batman sees anybody using a gun to hurt somebody. It causes him to have outbursts of almost uncontrollable anger. But we're going to see him deal with this problem throughout the movie. The villain of this movie is going to be the Joker. And it's not going to be just the Joker, but it's going to be a gang of Jokers. And we've seen this done before in other movies and shows. And the reason I chose Joker as a villain is because he's the most iconic Batman villain. And I feel like he would be a good villain to just start off with. And in this timeline, Batman here is a myth, or at least he has been for the past 3 years. Once Joker notices Batman and notices how quickly they're being caught and without explanation, his goal is to capture and unmask Batman and expose him to the world before he kills them. We're going to introduce Commissioner Gordon in this movie. And we're also going to introduce his daughter, Barbara Gordon, who is known as Batgirl. How I'm going to introduce her is when members of the Joker gang break into her house while her father isn't home. They attempt to steal everything and they attempt to hurt her. But luckily, just in time, Batman breaks in and saves her. And yes, she's grateful that she was saved, but in the future, this is going to be one of the things that inspires her to want to become Batgirl. And once Commissioner Gordon finds out, he feels relieved and feels that he is forever in Batman's debt. But he also feels like he failed as a father for not being there in time to help his daughter. Batman finds Joker at an abandoned warehouse. So what ends up happening is Joker actually catches Batman off guard and knocks him out. When Batman wakes up, he wakes up strapped to a chair with Joker broadcasting to the world, him finally about to unmask the Batman. And this scene actually does a couple of things. One, it proves that Batman is real, because as I mentioned earlier, he was seen as a myth. And just before Batman was unmasked, Alfred hacked into the computers that Joker was using to broadcast to the world. But there is still a problem with Batman being unmasked by the Joker. Now Joker knows who he is, and the Joker is just attacking Batman with insults about his dead parents. And to top it off, he mimics the killer killing his parents while pulling out a gun. So he broke out of the chair and beat Joker unconscious. But eventually Batman calmed himself down before he could go too far. And Batman learns that he can't keep letting the past control him. Batman picks up Joker to take him to Arkham Asylum, and Commissioner Gordon is outside of the asylum waiting for him. And instead of trying to take Batman in, Gordon actually thanks Batman for everything that he's doing for the city, specifically for saving his daughter when he couldn't. And this is how their secret friendship starts to form in this movie. And in the scene towards the end, where Joker's sitting alone in his cell, he talks about how he won't reveal Batman's identity because it makes the game more fun. So he's possibly hinting at him escaping soon. And in this movie, we're going to find out that it's actually Alfred that trains Batman. As we know, Alfred has past military experience. Because I already know there's going to be people thinking like Alfred's not as skilled as, say, Ra's al Ghul or someone along those lines. I have a reason for that. And I'm not going to explain exactly why I did that right now because it could possibly spoil future movies. But what I will say, especially with it being year 3 for this Batman, I want him to be more inexperienced and rough around the edges, still trying to figure out things in Gotham. So I'd still want him to be struggling, but still trying to learn his way around things. Yes, he's going to be above your typical henchman in skill, strength, and speed, but they still got a gun. He has to be strategic and be smart, especially when fighting large groups of people. And these are the types of things that inspire him to end up creating his own bat tech, like bat armor, bat tanks, all that types of stuff, because he learns from situation to situation. So I really want to emphasize that this is a Batman that, yes, he can fight, he's an amazing fighter, but he still really has to use his brain. And that's why I feel like not only using Joker as a villain, but using the Joker gang is a great idea, because it forces Batman to adapt. He can't just fight off 20, 30 people with only military training. He has to use his brain, he has to adapt, he has to create the Bat armor, he has to create a Bat tank, he has to use the environment to his advantage if he wants to succeed. This is what I really, really want to emphasize with this Batman. This is not just a punch kick, backflip Batman, this is a smart Batman. And next I would do a Superman movie called Kal-El Origins, which is, as it says in the title, an origin story. This movie is going to be about him awakening his power when he's a teenager, and not too long after, he ends up becoming the superhero we call Superman. And this is going to be a more lighthearted Superman. This is going to be that godly man type of Superman. He's going to be awkward, he's going to be real uppity and nerdy as Clark Kent, and then, you know, when he becomes Superman, he's more focused, he's more hopeful, he's more Superman. He works in Metropolis at a modernized version of the Daily Planet. He meets Lois, of course. I wouldn't really talk about Krypton too much in this movie since Clark wouldn't remember Krypton. But I do want there to be a scene with the Kents where they're talking to Clark about how he got there and how they adopted him and took him in and raised him and everything. I feel like that would be a really cool and simple scene to just put in the movie. And after saving a bunch of people, he's getting both positive and negative reactions from the crowd, from the media, from the military. The military is watching, but they're not engaging him as they don't really have a reason to yet. But they do indeed see him as a potential threat. And not too long after, we're introduced to Lex Luthor, who is the mayor in this movie. And Lex actually asks Superman to work for him. Obviously, he doesn't have good intentions for him working with him. He wants to test on him, recreate his powers, clone him, all that type of stuff. And Superman declines. And after Superman declines, Lex Luthor ends up sending robots to seemingly destroy the city, but really just to bait Superman out so they can destroy him. And after Superman finds out that Lex was the one who sent these robots, he threatens to expose him, and Lex comes back with a threat to his mother, and the movie actually ends with Superman backing down and leaving. For the next movie, I'm going to be doing a Wonder Woman movie. And this movie will be very similar to the animated Wonder Woman movie from 2009 that shows Ares as such a dangerous threat that caused a lot of casualties upon the Amazons. And even after they defeat him, they move to Themyscira to isolate themselves from man, where they pretty much see as lying and manipulative creatures. And later in the future, after those events, when Wonder Woman is born by Zeus breathing life into the clay that Diana's mother presented him with, she grew up as one of the most skilled and fierce Amazonians, but one that longed to leave the island she grew up on and go explore the outside world and get to experience talking to men and find out if they're really as bad as her mother depicted them out to be. And after a pilot named Steve Trevor crash lands on Themyscira, Diana finally for herself gets to learn about the true nature of man. Eventually, after chasing down Steve Trevor, the Amazonians capture him and interrogate him, and once they deem him not a threat, what ends up happening is the Queen decides to have a tournament of a sort to decide who's equipped enough to escort Steve back to America. She doesn't want Diana partaking in this tournament because 1, she's her daughter, and 2, she wants to shield her from the outside negativity of man and all that stuff. But Diana sneaks in, and at the time, Diana was supposed to be guarding the cell that Ares was being held captive in. And Ares, from his cell, manipulates one of the other guards that was supposed to be watching him. She betrays Alexa, who was the person that took Diana's place for her, and kills her. Now Diana wants a little revenge, and now she has another mission besides just bringing Steve Trevor back to America safely. Now she has to find Ares and defeat him. But she soon learns that this is not an easy task, and throughout the film, as they're looking for Ares, we see Diana and Steve help each other out and grow a closer connection, especially towards the end. Diana starts to lose that negative outlook that she once had on man. But in the end, they defeat Ares, of course. The movie ends with the Queen deciding to let Diana stay in America. She ends up living with Steve. That was a perfect movie, and you guys have to go check it out. It's on HBO Max. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm not sponsored by DC. She should sponsor me, but you know, they're not sponsoring me. But it's on HBO Max. But the only thing I would change with this movie is that since I would be calling this movie Lasso of Lies, I want Diana to have been lied to her whole childhood about something. And I want this something to be her origin story. I don't want her growing up knowing that she was made from clay and is the daughter of Zeus. I want her to learn of that during her battle with Ares, and I want Ares to be the one that tells her she's been lied to her whole life by her mother, which causes some distrust. She still loves her mother, but it causes some distrust. And with her being Zeus's daughter, that means that Ares is her brother, and she kinda still gotta get rid of bro. Another theme that ties in with the title Lasso of Lies would be when Diana discovers that not all men are bad, when she's grown up being told that men are nothing but manipulative and liars and untrustworthy. And that's how I would do Wonder Woman Lasso of Lies. The next movie that I have on this list is a Green Lantern movie that I'm going to be calling Emerald Knight Guardian. This is a nickname that he actually has in the comics. And this movie's Green Lantern is going to be John Stewart's. This is going to be another origin story showcasing his time in the military and how he becomes the Green Lantern. And this movie's going to have Sinestro as the main villain. We're going to see a lot of the Lantern Corps. We're going to spend some time on Earth. And the difference between here and in the comics is that in the comics, he has an ascension of a sort to where he becomes like the protector of the universe along with other Emerald Knights. And I think with this storyline, I want to kind of build up to that, and I think a good way to just start off would be to just name his movies Emerald Knight Guardian until we get to the point to where he actually becomes that. And if you're wondering why I keep giving these movies different names, like why I didn't give Batman a Batman movie, instead did Cape Crusader, or a Superman calling it Kal-El, or Wonder Woman calling it Princess Diana, it's because I wanted it to be different than movies we already have out. Some of these are going to have different feels. Like for the Batman movie, I want Batman to have a blue and gray classical suit with the same color scheme as we've already seen in other movies, but more like this. I have different visions for all of these movies, and I want these to really stay true to the comics with a couple tweaks, but not really changing too much like a lot of other movies tend to do. And the reason I did John Stewart's Green Lantern instead of Hal Jordan's Green Lantern is because if you've seen a past video of mine called Fixing the DCU, you know how much I love Justice League Unlimited and how much I wanted it to be adapted to live action. And with Justice League Unlimited and Justice League the Animated Series being two of my favorite shows, I definitely enjoy watching this version of Green Lantern. I really like his relationship with Hawkgirl, and I like how he interacts with the rest of the Justice League. I like his military fighting style that he has with the ring. I like his personality, and I think he would be a great Green Lantern to adapt on screen. The next movie I have is Oliver Queen, the Emerald Archer. Now, you may notice that I put Emerald in both the Green Arrow movie and the Green Lantern movie, and this is kind of a reference to the friendship that John and Oliver have in the Arrows TV show. And I want them to eventually build a friendship in my universe too, with John actually becoming Green Lantern and Green Arrow having a more comedic attitude like he does in the comics, in contrast to John's more stern soldier attitude. And for the Oliver Queen movie, I want the villain to be Malcolm Merlyn. And this is obviously another origin story. The story for this is going to be the usual. He has a yacht accident, ends up stranded on the island for about 5 years. And depending on the continuity, there's some where Green Arrow ends up training himself how to use a bow and how to fight. But in mine, I'm going to have him be trained by a man named Kirigi, who in the comics is a master of ninjutsu, who usually lives in the mountains of North Korea and has actually trained Bruce Wayne in the comics. And it's actually been revealed that he's taught several members of the League of Assassins. So in this story, he's going to be on the same island as Oliver Queen, and he's going to train him to survive. And by the time Green Arrow goes back, we're going to set up Merlin as a villain, who is actually the father of Oliver's best friend, Tommy Merlin. So we're going to have some good friendships. We're going to have Oliver's sister Thea be in this movie. We're going to explore a lot of different aspects to Green Arrow in a way we've seen before, just a little different. This is going to mention at the end Solomon Grundy and Green Lantern. And the last movie of Chapter 1 will be Caped Crusader 2. This movie is about mysterious murders that have been happening across Gotham City, and Batman investigates it, and it leads him to learning about Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke. And we find out by Alfred, because you know that Alfred had a history in the military, that Slade Wilson is actually a rogue super soldier that was created by the military and escaped the military, and has been an assassin for hire ever since. So this movie is going to show more of Batman's detective side that we didn't really see much in the first Batman movie. And also, there will be 2 fight scenes between Batman and Deathstroke in this movie. In the first one, Batman's kind of holding his own in the beginning, and then gets completely outclassed by Deathstroke. Because even though both of them have similar training, with Batman being trained by Alfred, who was formerly in the military, and in this universe, Slade was not only created by the military, but also trained by them. Slade is a super soldier, so as much as Batman trains, Slade is a super soldier, so he'll have to utilize other assets in order to beat him, which he does not do in this first fight. And in the second fight, Batman actually sets up a trap for him once he realizes he can't beat him 1v1 in hand-to-hand combat. So Batman baits Slade out into a dark alley so that he can use the darkness to his advantage, and he starts using random attacks at Slade. But Batman can't keep doing that for too long, because it's only a matter of time before Slade realizes where he's coming from and learns the counter. So after a few attacks, Batman looks for an opening, and he injects Slade with a serum that Alfred made that temporarily shuts down nerves, which prevents Slade from moving. And once Slade can't move, Batman picks him up and brings him to Arkham Asylum. We're going to have Green Arrow be subtly mentioned at some point in this movie, and we learn at the end of this movie that Ra's al Ghul hired Slade. Because not too long after Slade's brought into Arkham Asylum, he soon escapes with the help of Ra's al Ghul. And we're also going to have Catwoman be in this movie, not as Catwoman, but as Selena Kyle in a scene in the background, so that she would be set up as Catwoman later down the line in a later movie. We're also going to have a scene in the movie where Batman and Gordon meet to talk about what they know about Slade, which at the time isn't much until Batman starts investigating more. Cape Crusader 2 will be the movie that ends off Chapter 1, as I already said. The reason that I didn't just have them do a Justice League movie is because I want them to already have gone through certain character arcs by themselves before I introduce a whole team of heroes. So far, I've ran about 6 phases or chapters to this universe that I'm structuring, and if you guys would like to see more videos on this, comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.